Excuse me. Excuse me. Guys, let's start. Uh, Hi, I'm Mankomal. From Krauss International. I'll be talking about BGP networks for ISPs and telecom service providers. Just a little brief about me. I've been in this industry for last 17 years now. I'm a certified trainer for MikroTik MTCNA and NTCWE, that is wireless course. Um, I am basically into designing of wide arrays of network for ISPs, BPOs, data centers, and most recently we have designed a network for Indian Armed Forces in Northern Command. And plus we are running our own ISP in Punjab, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and Gujarat. The main objectives, is everybody comfortable in Hindi? Yeah? Uh, Guys who are not comfortable in Hindi, I know Raj. Guys who are not comfortable in Hindi, whatever I'm going to talk in Hindi is what is written in English over there. So don't worry. If there is something that I'm doing extra, I'll definitely come back to you in English. Okay? Yeah? So main objectives kya hai, that what we will be discussing in this half an hour is, what is BGP? Uh, how do we establish BGP establish कैसे करना है MikroTik router OS को use करके? Then I'll be दो तीन scenarios मैं उठाऊंगा जो बहुत common है हमारे लिए, ठीक है? BGP के scenarios जो बहुत common है हमारे को, जो हम commonly face करते हैं. Then is how to make BGP more secure by using route filters, and generally why we should use route filters. You can download this presentation on mum.mikrotik.com. After, I think, couple of days, they'll upload the presentation. Or you can send me an email. My email ID is mankomal@gmail.com. Or if you want, you can go right now at mankomal.com. The whole presentation is there right now. You can view it right now also. Before we start, I have already given you this break. You needed a coffee break or tea break. वो आपको मिल चुकी है, तो अब मैं और कोई ब्रेक्स नहीं दे रहा, ठीक है ना? So let's start. The first and the foremost thing is कि BGP होता क्या है? BGP, we all know, is Border Gateway Protocol. But what is BGP? It's an exterior gateway protocol wherein multiple networks are talking to each other on AS numbers, right? Your prefixes are announced by different prefixes of different ASs are being announced over the whole internet cloud. BGP neighbors are usually referred to as peers, and the routers running on same AS number, जो same AS number पे run हो रहे होते हैं, they are referred to as IBGP, that is internal BGP, and the ones who are running on different AS numbers are eBGPs. And the protocol is run on TCP 179 port. So you need to ensure that you're running on the same TCP port, or you're not blocking that port in your firewalls, otherwise you'll not be able to establish your BGP connections. I just now talked about AS numbers. मैंने भी AS numbers के बारे में बात करा था. AS numbers होते क्या हैं? It is an autonomous synchronous numbers. It is a unique number that is given to an organization on which अपने prefix जो होते हैं, जो अपने IP address होते हैं, वो हम advertise करते हैं, right? We advertise our prefixes or IP addresses through an AS number, right? We have assigned these AS number through registrar, like in foreign land it is IANA, but in India we are being assigned these AS numbers and IP addresses through IRIN. Okay. Within an internet, AS is a collection of connected IP routing prefixes under control of one or more network operators. So you have a network operator A, like Google, who has certain set of prefixes जो Google के पास हैं, right? They are advertised on say AS number 15169, and आपके पास अपने IP addresses हैं, right? Say 1.1.1.0/24, AS number 100 पे आप advertise कर रहे हो. So ऐसे, they are not just two people, there are many hundreds and hundreds of people who are advertising on AS numbers, right? Their prefixes. This is a unique ID, so no two operators will have a same AS number. Like an IP address, this is a unique ID, and AS number के basis पे ही जो सारी communication BGP की होती है, it is all based upon AS number. You need to get a registration done through IREN in India. Somebody in the morning had asked me ki, in fact, so you had asked me if where do you get the IP addresses and AS number? You get it through IREN. AS on the internet cloud talks to each other and they give the information of routing. So basically, if I'm an ISP, say I'm an ISP running on AS200, so basically what am I doing with BGP? With BGP, I'm just announcing my prefixes. I'm announcing my prefix to AS300 and AS100, right? What am I announcing? That on AS200, that is my AS, I have got certain prefixes like 1.1.1.0/24, right? And something like this. And AS100 announces, okay, you have this prefix, I have this prefix. And this is how the whole communication happens. But why should we use? BGP use क्यों करें? Static routing कर लेते हैं ना, easy है, right? Static routing कर लेते हैं, बता देते कि 2.2.0 जो है, वो reachable है IP के through के IP address के through. General static routing, है ना? Why static routing क्यों नहीं कर लेते हम? क्यों BGP करें? So BGP is a scalable protocol. It's a dynamic protocol. Any changes that you will make in your router will get affected in all the routers all over the world. Every router everywhere in the world will get to know that this IP address is available on this router at this place, right? If you end up doing static routing on all the routers, will you be able to do? Why would a network engineer of an XYZ company do a static routing for my address, specifically my address? Just doesn't make sense. So BGP in itself is a scalable, it's a scalable protocol wherein you announce an IP address one place and it will be communicated to everywhere else also. It is very reliable and robust. There are other dynamic protocols like RIP, OSPF also available, but we do not use these protocols when we are advertising our IP addresses, right? We use these protocols for internal use only. For external, that is when we are talking to AS, different ASs, हम generally BGP ही use करते हैं. We generally use BGP. No matter how big the network is, BGP doesn't care about the internal topology. Network कितना भी बड़ा हो आपका, right? आपके network में you have thousands and thousands of router. It just doesn't matter. Airtel के network में there must be thousands and thousands of routers, right? पर उसका AS number एक ही है 9498. हम जब भी हमने अपना BGP अनाउंस करना होता है हम 9498 पे अनाउंस करते हैं अपना and our IP addresses are broadcasted all over the world. So how do we run the BGP? हम BGP अपने नेटवर्क में रन कैसे करें? बोथ साइड के नेटवर्क्स को, मेरे नेटवर्क को भी एंड टेलको साइड के नेटवर्क को भी एक दूसरे का पेयरिंग एनेबल, पहले पेयरिंग करना पड़ेगा आपस में एक दूसरे को, करेक्ट? We need to enable a peering. We need to create a session between the two, right? Both sides exchange a routing information, right? I will announce my routing to my telco and my telco will announce their routing to me. And this is how a BGP will be established and I will be able to go on the internet or my customers will be able to go on the internet and the servers, web servers that are on the internet will be able to reach me back. Right? There are certain messages that are associated with BGP. If you open BGP in debug mode, so there are certain messages. We need to understand these messages because these messages are the key to BGP. Whatever problems that you're going to face in your BGP sessions, if you understand these messages, you'll be able to understand what kind of problem there is. So the first message that comes is open. This is when the connection is established and it is confirmed with a keep alive, okay? In our MikroTik router OS, we have a keep alive time. for BGP. BGP के लिए keep alive time होता है. We have to set that. Why do we have to set that? Because when the session will be established, that keep alive time will be exchanged between the two, right? This keep alive time will tell them that you need to keep my session alive for this amount of time. And उसके बाद अगर मैं आपको फिर से communicate करूँगा, तो मैं alive हूँ, otherwise I am dead. The connection is no more, right? This keep alive time keeps on checking the system, whether it is still existent or not. Okay? Once the connection is severed after, that means कि connection नहीं आता, there is no beacon coming. Beacon नहीं आ रहा एक specific amount of time के साथ, तो connection बंद. BGP is closed. Notification, that is when the notification comes that the session is now shut or there is an error in the session, right? And then in this keep alive time, another thing that can go is an update. What kind of updates is that you have announced a new IP pool. Earlier on, you were announcing only 1.1.1.0/24, but now you're announcing 2.2.2.0/24, right? This is when the update goes. The update, now I'm announcing this also. Or I'm removing 1.1.0, I'm now announcing 2.2.0 only. There are certain attributes. कुछ attributes भी हैं जो BGP define करते हैं. They tell the peer कि कैसे communicate करना है, right? I'll talk very general. I'll not go into deep of BGP. I'll be just doing very general so that you are able to understand. आप लोग समझ सको. कल जब आप अपने network में BGP establish करो, कोई problem आता है तो उसको कैसे tackle करना है, ठीक है? We'll be just doing that much, right? Because BGP in as such is a very huge topic. You're announcing a prefix, right? You have multiple routers, multiple points of ingress and egress. So you have multiple, basically you're multi-home. So how will the router on the telco side know that when the message is coming, from which side it should come to, right? कौन सी साइड से आना चाहिए? एयरटेल से आना चाहिए मेरा ट्रैफिक, मेरा वोडाफोन से आना चाहिए, रिलायंस से आना चाहिए. From where should the traffic come? This is the time that BGP attributes come into play. We'll talk about certain attributes that are AS path. AS path defines that where is the traffic going to travel, right? You can define the AS path, or you have a predefined AS path is already defined for you, and you will travel through that AS path. Then is the next hop. If somebody wants to reach your AS 100, what is the next router that it should look for to reach your router? Then is the local preference. This is used for an outbound connection. So anything that you are uploading will be influenced by local preference. What local preference you have set up in your prefixes. Then is a community. Community is a numeric value that can be attached to a prefix for some specific purpose. So suppose, say, there was a case where one of our friends wanted to peer for Google line with us. They had a connection with Airtel also, and they wanted to connect to us for Google. When they connected with us for Google, they were not able to pass the traffic. So we forced Google traffic from our network by assigning a community to it. I'm just going to show that case to you also. Then is an MED, multi-exit discriminator. MED, when you are, say you are connected to Airtel on multiple points. So you have one WAN of Airtel, two WANs of Airtel, and three WANs of Airtel. So which prefix, from which WAN, which prefix will be inbounding can be defined by MED. But this is only when you are multi-home to the same AS, not to different ASs. Multi-homing, I just clarify this term for some people who may not be knowing it and are not in depth into it. Multi-homing basically means when you are connected to one or more peering sessions with some other AS numbers, okay? So, understanding an AS path. What is an AS path? मैंने सबसे पहला attribute AS path दिया था. वो AS path होता क्या है? कैसे होता है? We suppose that we are on AS100, right? We have a prefix of 100.100.100.0/24. And we have a server, web server on AS400, correct? And how will this server be able to reach to us? So the path, AS path that this server is going to take is, first it is going to go to AS300, then it is going to go to AS200, and then it will reach to us in AS100. So this is your AS path. So this is your point of ingress, inbound, अंदर आ रहा है connection यहाँ से. तो आपका जो AS path की definition होगी, वो बाहर third party servers को बताएगी कि आपकी तरफ कैसे आ सकता है. How will that traffic come to your network is what the AS path will define. Similarly, next hop क्या होता है? Again, we'll take the same scenario and we'll assume that the web server at AS400 wants to reach us. So how is it going to reach us? So for this, the next hop will be, for AS100, the next hop will be 11113, then 11112, and then will be 1111. So it will travel through each router, and each router again will have a routing table. हर एक router में एक routing table होगा जो बताएगा कि now you can go to this router, and there you will find a prefix or route for this location. It's similar, yeah. What is a routing table? Routing table बड़ा similar है. You need to reach to the narrow place. How will you reach it? Right? You take this road, then you go left from there, then you take a right from there. It's the same way. But in an IXP scenario or Internet Exchange Point scenario, this next hop eliminates the central router. So the next hop is defined where AS300 directly knows that it needs to reach 1111 to reach a prefix of 100, 100, 100, 0. In the previous way, if you'll see, the AS was traveling next hop for each separate AS, right? But in the IXP scenario, the AS is able to reach through the direct IP address of the ingress point of the AS100 router. BGP also has a certain rule. BGP ऐसे नहीं बोलता यार ये मेरे को दिख रहा है यहाँ पे चले जाओ, नहीं. Because there will be multiple points of entry and exit. So BGP will make this decision based on certain attributes. What are those attributes? It will prefer the path with the highest weight. When the weight is the highest, it will prefer that path first. So suppose a path X has weight 0 and path Y has weight 10. So path Y will be chosen over path X. Then it will prefer the highest local preference. If the default preference is 100, the higher the preference is, local preference, the more the preference will be to that path. उसकी जितनी local preference ज़्यादा होएगी value, उतना उसकी weightage ज़्यादा है. Then prefers the path locally originated via aggregate or BGP network announce. Similarly, then the path with the shortest AS path. So we will sometimes what we do is we prepend the path. So what we do is we announce a path multiple times so that the AS on the remote side sees us that we are little far away. For a specific network, we can define AS path to be lengthened by prepending it. The path with the lowest origin will be preferred. The lowest origin is IGP. So if the traffic is generating internally, that path will be selected first. If the path is generating externally, the same path, then it will not be entertained first, it will be entertained later, in case the internal path is no more valid. Prefers the path with the lowest MED. MED is multi-exit discriminator that we just talked about for a multi-home scenario with the same AS. Prefers the path learned by EGP over the ones by IBGP. So if the path of each BGP is learned, then it will prefer that first. The path, the shortest route reflection cluster list. And the final is the path that comes with the lowest neighbor address. You can find more details about the algorithm. This is just a snippet of the algorithm. The algorithm is actually very huge. There are much more criteria involved, and you can find the details of it in noction.com blog. I've given a link on my presentation. You can visit it later on. Establishing a BGP is very easy, right? You can just establish a BGP. You can tell who your neighbor is and what their alias is. आपने एक बारी बता दिया और BGP establish हो गया. But आपने मेन क्या करना है? आपने इन्फ्लुएंस करना है क्या कि मेरा ट्रैफिक बाहर कैसे जाता है और मेरा ट्रैफिक अंदर कैसे आता है. अब आपका सिनारियो ये है कि आपके पास एयरटेल की भी लाइन है, वोडाफोन की भी लाइन है, राइट? मैं चाहता हूँ कि मेरी एयरटेल की लाइन जिसके ऊपर 4 STM चल रहा है उसके ऊपर मैक्सिमम ट्रैफिक आए, और जो मेरी वोडाफोन की लाइन है जिसके ऊपर सिर्फ 1 STM है उसके ऊपर ऑब्वियसली लेसर अमाउंट ऑफ ट्रैफिक है. वो कैसे करोगे? फॉर दिस व्हाट वी यूज इज राउट फिल्टर्स. Route filtering is not just used for influencing traffic, but to making your BGP secure also. When you filter incoming routes, will change how we see the external prefixes. When you put a filter, आप inbound filters लगाओगे तो आप ये change कर रहे हो कि how are you able to see the internet. When you're putting outgoing filters, you're changing how the internet sees your network. Okay? There are 3 scenarios that I will take, which are most common scenarios that I will take into consideration. The first is the single home scenario. The second is single home with pairing through an IXP. And the third is multi-home network plus pairing through an IXP. Just give me a minute. Sorry. A typical single home scenario. We have an internet cluster, we have a transit telco like Airtel, Vodafone, Reliance, and we are connected through RAS 100. Before the BGP can be established, this is specifically for India, right? आपका whois appnik पे तो update हो जाता है. The moment you get your resources, it gets updated. But the telcos ask that कि आपका whois RADB पे भी updated होना चाहिए. Then only they will put the entries into their system. So you need to take, ये इसका थोड़ा ध्यान रखना पड़ेगा आपको कि RADB में भी आपका update होए. This is an external, the IRIN will not help you in this. The second thing that you need to do is you need to decide whether you want full routes, partial routes, or just the gateway route. Full routes could be to the tune of 200 to 400,000 routes. Whether your router, aapka router can handle those amount of routes is a question that you need to decide upon. Do you have a router good enough to handle those amount of routes? You can also ask for partial routes. Or you can ask just for a 0000/0 route. Okay, that's a default gateway route that will be announced by your telco. The next thing that you need to do is you need to tell your telco which prefixes you will be announcing, right? I generally prefer that if you announce not only the summarized prefix but unsummarized also. So if you suppose IRIN has given you /22s, I would prefer that you announce 4/24s and 1/22, or even 2/23s also. Basically, this will give you an advantage later on. You'll not get to know on the first instance. आपको पहली बार ही नहीं पता चलेगा कि unsummarized routes क्यों announce करने हैं, but जब later on जब आपका network बड़ा हो जाएगा, you'll understand that this will help. Also, you need to decide if you want that default route or not, or you're just going to manually, insert a static route into your system. What is the practical scenario? So the practical scenario is that we have a BGP interface that we'll configure. It's available under routing BGP. The instance that I'm showing you here is from one of my networks in Gujarat. The AS number is 134932. Sorry. The AS number is 134932. The router ID is my WAN ID. What are the configurations that I'm doing at my end? I'll explain to you. I'm creating a BGP instance, and मैंने जो ज़्यादातर देखा है that people use the default instance. Request you not to use the default instance. एक नया instance बना लो, 2 मिनट लगेंगे. उसको एक define कर दो, अपना नाम दे दो उस instance का, आपकी company का नाम दे दो या अपना नाम दे दो, and you define what is your AS number. Router ID is optional, but it is recommended that you should give, because this falls into one of the criteria of BGP path selection. This is what our network looks like. My IP address is 182.75.246.118, and the Airtel IP address is 182.75.246.117. The next thing that you need to do is you need to establish a peering with your telco. So configuration that you need to do at your end is you need to define which instance you will be using. जो instance हमने पहले slide में बनाई थी, that was Srinath ji. So I'm going to use the Srinath ji instance, right? And I'm going to tell that my peering IP address or the IP address of my peer is 182.75.246.117. And I need to define the third most important thing is that I need to give the AS number. What is the AS number that my peer has? You can and you should also define how much will be your refresh rate. It is a good thing if you define your refresh rate also. The moment you click OK, if आपके telco ने भी ये configuration करा हुआ है, what you will see is your BGP is established and you're getting one count of prefix from their side. What is the prefix that I'm getting from Airtel side is it's 0000/0 with a gateway of 182.75.246.117. What my telco is telling me that your default route, जो आपका default route होगा, that is 117. Okay, you can define this manually also, or if you want, you can remove your static route and this will be used by default then. So if your BGP is disabled, that means you've lost the connection to Airtel also. अभी तक हमने क्या करा था, हमने एक peering session establish कर लिया था, but हमने ये नहीं करा था कि हमने अपने IP address अभी तक नहीं announce करे. हमने Airtel को ये नहीं बताया था कि हमारे IP address क्या हैं. We have still not told Airtel what are our IP addresses. So what we need to do next is, in your BGP same window, there is a network window. What we need to do is we need to advertise our network. So in this particular case, the network is 103.206.180.0/22. And our network will be, once you define this network, it will be available in your BGP advertisements. You can see that what all you are advertising to your peer. And you can manipulate what you want to advertise to your peers. You can view the results here, whatever you want to manipulate. अभी तक हमने क्या करा है, हमने बड़ा सिंपल करा है कि हमने अपने राउटर को एयरटेल के राउटर के साथ बस बेसिकली एक BGP सेशन एस्टैब्लिश कर लिया, दैट्स इट. हमने और कुछ नहीं करा. जो एयरटेल भेज रहा है हमने एक्सेप्ट कर लिया, जो हमने भेजना है, जो नेटवर्क्स में ऐड करा हुआ सब कुछ जा रहा है, ठीक है. बट दिस इज अ बैड सिनेरियो. व्हाट वी नीड टू डू इज वी नीड टू डिफाइन राउट फिल्टर्स. वी नीड टू टेल दैट वी नीड कि हमारे को सिर्फ ये ही एक राउट आना चाहिए, राइट. हमारे को सिर्फ एक स्पेसिफिक राउट्स आने चाहिए, हमारे पास सिर्फ स्पेसिफिक राउट्स ही हम एडवर्टाइज करना चाहते हैं. हमारे को ये चीज़ बतानी बहुत ज़रूरी है. व्हाई इज इट एसेंशियल? सो यू आर डिपेंडिंग राइट नाउ ऑन एयरटेल टू बी इंच परफेक्ट. मतलब कि आप चाहते, आप ये वो एक हाइपोथेसिस पे चल रहे हो, ये सोच के चल रहे हो कि एयरटेल से कभी गलती होगी ही नहीं। ऐसा नहीं है। व्हाट आई हैव सीन इज, मैंने लाइव एग्जांपल देखा कि एयरटेल से एक बारी गलती हुई थी, हमने राउट फिल्टर नहीं लगाया हुआ था और उन्होंने गलती से सारे फुल बीजीपी राउट्स हमारे राउटर पे एडवर्टाइज कर लिए थे, एंड आर राउटर वाज 1100 AHX2 which was not able to handle it and it got hung and the whole traffic got stopped. ठीक है, एयरटेल से भी गलती हो सकती है, वो गॉड नहीं है, गॉड से भी, खुदा से भी गलती हो जाती है कभी कभी. सो you need to put route filters, you need to take corrective measures. Route filters, why we use them is for security, for economics, for technical reasons. There are many reasons. They're not just कि यार मेरे को सिर्फ यही सुनना है और मेरे को यही बोलना है. मेरे टेक्निकल रीजंस हैं, मेरा राउटर नहीं हैंडल कर सकता. माई राउटर कैन नॉट हैंडल सो मच अमाउंट ऑफ CPU loads. So I need to define what I want to hear and what I want others to hear. So example is, when I'm establishing a peer with my customer, I do not want them to hear my gateway route. Okay? जब मैं एक अपने कस्टमर के साथ एस्टैब्लिश कर रहा हूँ peering, तो मैं नहीं चाहता कि वो मेरा गेटवे राउट उसको सुनाई दे. क्यों? If he is able to learn my gateway route, and what if his main WAN gets disabled? What will happen? All his internet traffic is going to divert through my router. I've basically made him a failover network, right? So I'm telling you a scenario where I'm peered to Xeron Technologies, Mr. Tamil. So we have a peering session of Google with them, and what they are not able to learn is my gateway route. I'm not announcing any gateway route to them. Only thing I'm announcing to them is my Google routes, so that they can access Google network but not the whole internet network. Other than this, there are some bogus IPs also available on the internet. I need to filter out what I am listening to, or what my whatever the traffic that is coming into my system. मेरे अगर network के अंदर कोई traffic आ रहा है which is not valid traffic, then it should get dropped. But can I really maintain a bogon list? Bogon is basically a bogus IP. 192.168.0.0/24 is what? A bogus IP. If my network is getting these IPs, that means what? There's something wrong. Because these are private ranges. There are some ranges like 103 still has some ranges which are not being assigned to anyone. Correct? So if my network is trying to access those range, or my network is getting those ranges, what does that mean? These are bogus IPs. That means someone is trying to attack my system. So this is just one of the ways. This is not the only way, but this is एक तरीका है so that you can save your network from attacks from bogus IPs. What you could do is that you can peer yourself with a service known as Cymru, CYMRU. You can have a BGP session with them, okay? You can send a mail, it's free of cost, they don't charge you any money. And once you have established a BGP session with them, whatever IP list that you get from them, जो भी IP list आती है वो आप सीधा black hole routing पे डाल सकते हो. So that means it is not accessible from your network and to your network. Both ways the access to these bogon lists gets eliminated. You can find a detailed configuration on my blog if you want. Once you establish a bogon peering session with them, you'll see that the internet is filled with 3,725 prefixes which have no meaning at all. And yes, your network is trying to access those prefixes and you're getting a request from those prefixes. उन IP addresses से आपको traffic आ भी रहा है और जा भी रहा है. It is not कि आपका it is not necessary, मतलब कि ज़रूरी नहीं है कि आपका जो customer है that is basically doing some malicious activity. It could be someone else trying to do some malicious activity using some other prefix. So to eliminate this, it is better that you have a bogon list in your BGP peering session. The second most common scenario that we have is we have a single hop network with an internet exchange peering for say Google or Facebook. And this internet exchange peering not only has Google or Facebook attached to them, but they have other ISPs also attached to them. What IXP is basically an internet exchange point where multiple ISPs and multiple companies like Google, Limelight, Facebook, and everybody come and they exchange the data. What is the benefit of an IXP? IXP basically reduces your cost. First and foremost, ISP scenario में जब cost reduction की बात आती है तो सबके चेहरे पे एक smile आ जाती है. तो ये वही है, IXP is basically reducing your cost. Plus it's providing a better quality of service for your customer. Google का अगर if you generally ping Google, Google will be like 100 or 200 ms away from you in time. Plus it's traveling through multiple hops. But once you establish a peering session with your IXP, that will be like 50 to 60 ms at the most, and the number of hops will be like 2 to 3 hops. So significantly in decreasing the number of hops, it gives a better quality to your customer. A customer को better experience मिलता है. When they open YouTube, their page loads faster, their videos loads faster. You're able to do multiple things. Plus, it also offloads जो traffic आपके upload upstream पे जा रहा है, suppose from Airtel or Vodafone, it reduces significantly. In India, Nixie is the IXP. Official IXP is Nixie. Unfortunately, Nixie doesn't provide service for Google, Facebook, and all. What you could do is you can approach private IXPs that have built up over time in India now. Most famous one are Mumbai CH. We have a partner here who is doing JetPeer. They are also doing their own IXP now. So you can approach them for multiple services like Google, Limelight, Facebook, and others. What I'm showing you is a direct example of a direct peering example of Google. Google is announcing 418 prefixes. Google has 418 prefixes वो announce कर रहे हैं. If you summarize them, there are only 4 or 5 prefixes basically. 4 या 5 prefix बनते हैं, but Google is announcing unsummarized and summarized prefixes to us. And the effect that it has is that because we are directly peered to Google, the whole traffic of our network goes through Google now and directly to Google, and we are able to save 200 Mbps of upstream traffic. This is a non-peak hour. So we are able to save 250 Mbps in a non-peak hour. So you can very well imagine कि peak hours में क्या हालत होती होगी. Network पे अगर हम Google peering बंद कर दें तो हमारा network basically चलेगा ही नहीं. It will get choked. Then is the third most common scenario is that you don't trust Airtel alone. You need to have a backup of Airtel, and plus you need a service like Google peering to be enabled at your end. So when you have multiple telcos communicating through your AS, this is a multi-home scenario basically where you have multiple upstreams through different ASs, and plus you are peered to also services like Google or something else, or you are peered to an IXP who is further peered to Google, Facebook and all. But the objective at this point is that we don't want to, हमारे को Google से अब supposedly we are getting 418 prefixes from Google, right? अब मैं ये क्या सारा Airtel और Vodafone पे distribute करना शुरू कर दूँ? Just don't, मेरे को सेंस नहीं बनती. क्यों? क्योंकि अगर गूगल एयरटेल पे कोई भी और उनके एएस के साथ जुड़ा हुआ है तो वो अपना ट्रैफिक मेरी तरफ से डाइवर्ट होके गूगल का, उनका ट्रैफिक जो गूगल का है वो मेरे से डाइवर्ट होके जाना शुरू हो जाएगा. दिस इज समथिंग दैट वी डोंट वांट, एंड दिस इज द प्राइमरी रीजन दैट वी यूज राउट फिल्टर्स. I'm going to talk about a scenario where this is basically one of our scenarios in one of our ISPs in Tamil Nadu, where we are multi-homed right now, and we are providing a peering service to one of our customers for Google. But what we don't want is that the prefixes that are announced by AS200 should be heard by Airtel, Vodafone, etc. And what we don't want is that AS200 should not listen to a prefix announced by Airtel or Vodafone. Both ways. हम नहीं चाहते कि AS200 को एयरटेल और वोडाफोन के प्रीफिक्सेस सुनाई दे, और हम नहीं चाहते कि एयरटेल और वोडाफोन को AS200 के प्रीफिक्स सुनाई दे. हम इंटरनेट का ट्रैफिक नहीं उसको दे रहे. What we are giving basically is a Google traffic. That's it. For this, what we need to do is we need to use route filters, as I have said earlier also. So I'll explain to you what we are basically doing. In Airtel, what we are doing is we are telling them that ये मेरे prefix हैं और आप इनको accept कर लो. इसके अलावा कोई भी और prefix है तो आप उसको discard कर दो, आप उसको बाहर मत भेजो. Do not announce it to Airtel. My prefix list is about 7,000 prefixes I have in my BGP. But I do not want to distribute prefixes that are not of mine to my telcos. Okay? And to my peering, I do not want to announce any other prefix other than the Google prefixes. So I'm discarding everything else. I'm just, here I cannot make a whitelist, so what I'm making is a blacklist. On Airtel, if you see, I'm making a whitelist. I'm only telling them what they want, what they should listen to, and for my peer, I'm telling them that they should not listen to this, but they should listen to everything else. The problem, एक हमारे को problem face हुई थी इस network पे. The problem was once we had established the peering session, our upload was working fine, but our download was still coming. My peering partner's download was still coming through his internet, his Airtel connection. So how do we cope up with this? For this, there's an option available for communities. Community attribute can be used to control the routing policy in an upstream provider. So I can announce, I can tell Google that if you receive a certain community, then you should force the traffic through that hop only. Okay? गूगल अब मैं एयरटेल से भी अनाउंस कर रहा हूँ, मैं वोडाफोन से भी अनाउंस कर रहा हूँ, और मैं गूगल पे डायरेक्टली भी पेड हूँ. तो गूगल मेरे को एयरटेल के थ्रू भी सुन सकता है, वोडाफोन के थ्रू भी सुन सकता है, एंड वो मेरे को डायरेक्टली भी सुन सकता है. पर इस केस में क्या है, उसके लिए बड़ा सिंपल है कि उसका एएस पाथ मैं डायरेक्टली कनेक्टेड हूँ, तो वो मेरे से डायरेक्टली कम्युनिकेट कर सकता है. पर जहाँ पे मैं भी बीच में आ गया हूँ मेरे अपने कस्टमर के लिए, तो वो उस टाइप पे कैसे डिसीजन बनेगा. For this, something like, I'm just giving you an example for Google, because this is a practical thing that we had done. Different scenarios, different IXPs will have different communities. Google has given a list of communities that you can use for ingress from their network. So, अगर मैं announce करूँ on community 15169.13.300, that is the bottommost, highest preference will be given. Whereas if I announce through 15169.13,000, lowest preference is given to the traffic. So it is very evident that if I announce those prefixes through a community of 15169.13.300, the Google servers will use that path as the most preferred path. You can set up community in filters under BGP actions, and if you want to see the result, you can see the advertisements that particular prefix is getting in your advertisement, and you can very well see that the community is 15169.13.300. And after setting this, the whole traffic that was earlier traveling through Airtel started flowing through our Google peering network. So the route filters is a very important part of your network. just establishing a BGP connection is not enough. You need to define how the world is going to listen to your traffic and how you are listening to the world's traffic. आप दुनिया को कैसे सुन रहे हो, इंटरनेट की दुनिया को कैसे सुन रहे हो, आपका राउटर कैसे सुन रहा है, और आप कैसे उसको बोल रहे हो, अपने जो प्रीफिक्सेस को आप कैसे दुनिया के इंटरनेट पे या राउटर्स को सुनाना चाहते हो, ये दोनों चीज़ें इंपॉर्टेंट है, राइट? So route filters is a very essential part that you need to configure along with your BGP sessions, rather than just establishing a blank BGP session and leaving it and thinking that nothing will go wrong because Airtel is behind me or Vodafone is behind me. Trust me, they are not gods. They do much more mistakes and their blunders are even bigger than us. We just announced accidentally 2 routes. They accidentally announced 200,000 routes. So you need to decide that whether you want to trust those telcos, when they announce 200,000 routes and they choke up your router, or you don't want to. So it is totally up to you. How do we check the results? The common, बहुत एक common तरीका है check results को check करने का BGP के, that is पिंग कर लेते हैं, ट्रेस रूट कर लेते हैं, या हम टॉर्च से चेक कर लेते हैं कि हमारा ट्रैफिक कहाँ से आ रहा है, कहाँ से जा रहा है, राइट? बट ट्रस्ट मी, इन BGP you cannot rely on these. What you need to rely on is looking glass. Looking glass is a tool which will tell how your AS is reachable through a particular router. Unfortunately, MikroTik router OS doesn't have a looking glass tool inbuilt into the system, so you can use a third-party tool which is available online. There are a lot of looking glass tools available. Once you have, आपने एक बारी अपनी डाउनलोड पॉलिसी लगा ली कि आपको कैसे सुनना चाहते हो वर्ल्ड का ट्रैफिक, तो आप लुकिंग ग्लास से एक बारी देख सकते हो कि इज इट एक्चुअली वर्किंग. मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम्स क्या होते हैं, हम सेटिंग कर देते हैं, ठीक है हो गया. इट्स नॉट द केस. यू नीड टू वेरीफाई इट. यू नीड टू सेट अप, वेरीफाई and then confirm it. You need to follow a process. एक process को follow करना पड़ेगा, otherwise your settings will not take into effect and they will not do what you want them to do or what you intend them to do. Any questions? No questions? Perfect. We have a perfect BGP network then. I would like to thank AGNI Communication, Xeron Networks, Spaceness Internet Services, and Shinaji NetSol. What I have shown on the live networks, screenshots of live networks, and these were taken from their routers, and special thanks to them. I have my sources from where I have not learned everything from the womb, so I have learned from somewhere. My sources are listed in my blog also, so you can visit these sites for more detailed description of what I have talked about. I've just given you a small overview. मैंने एक छोटा सा overview दिया, अगर आपको इसकी detail चाहिए तो you can go on these websites. And in the end, you are free to copy this, you are free to distribute it. Just need to add a small thank you note for me if you're using the same exact slides. And if you can distribute and help someone in the network, no problem with me. I've got no copyrights. You can distribute it as much as you want and use it as much as you want. If you have got any questions, I'll stop. Otherwise, we'll end the session. Great. Thanks everyone for your time.